were Gene Hackman, 95, and his wife Betsy Arakawa, 65, and a dog were found deceased.
Whenever multiple bodies appear at the same location simultaneously, chilling conspiracy theories inevitably arise. The tragic and mysterious deaths of Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife have left many questions unanswered. Police found their bodies in their sprawling estate in Santa Fe. No one had seen the couple for days, and authorities said they had been deceased for some time. The sheriff now says they are not ruling out foul play. As soon as the bodies were discovered, FBI immediately sealed off the scene and launched an investigation. A series of clues were uncovered, forming the basis for final conclusions about the couple's deaths. So what exactly did the FBI find after thoroughly searching every corner of the mansion? A massive investigation is underway. The discovery of their bodies raised further concerns when workers found the front door of their Santa Fe home open and Hackman's body was found near the kitchen. His wife, Betsy Arakawa, was found on the bathroom floor. A prescription bottle appeared open, with pills scattered on the countertop. Investigators removed 2 phones, blood pressure and thyroid medications, Tylenol, medical records, and a 2025 monthly planner from the home. The other huge mystery was that their beloved German Shepherd was found dead, while 2 other dogs were discovered roaming freely on the property. There is speculation circulating that the couple could have died from carbon monoxide poisoning. Initial reports said no foul play was suspected and speculated that they may have died from carbon monoxide poisoning. However, after the bodies were discovered, the New Mexico Gas Company tested all the lines in and around the home and did not find any problems. Both individuals tested negative for carbon monoxide. Hackman's pacemaker recorded its last event on February 17th, which was 9 days before the bodies were found. The sheriff said it's possible that was Hackman's last day of life. Anyway, a more thorough investigation will be completed. Authorities are focusing on analyzing the couple's cell phone data, including phone calls, text messages, and photos, in an attempt to construct a timeline of events leading up to the couple's death. The deceased's cell phones could offer crucial insights into their movements, activity, and the moments leading up to the tragic event. So, can the authorities determine whether they fell or not? Was there any evidence on the bodies to suggest a fall? Well, until now, there was no indication of trauma on the bodies. If they had fallen or sustained a head injury or brain injury, that would have been discovered by the pathologist. The finding of the pills, being such important evidence, could that have been part of the cause? Well, of course, they are important evidence, and it might be the scenario that Hackman was found in the mudroom with his glasses and cane nearby, suggesting he was walking when he suddenly collapsed, perhaps due to a heart event. Betsy likely found him, panicked, and went into the nearest bathroom, dealing with medications scattered around. A space heater was found near her face, leading to speculation that she may have fallen after ingesting something from the pills. The pills will be key in determining what happened. While no signs of trauma were observed on the bodies, investigators remain cautious, as pathologists will likely uncover more than we thought. Those close to Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa have started to speak out regarding their daily habits months before they died. Daniel and Barbara Lenahan, a married couple that had been friends with Hackman and Arakawa, and their son Aaron, told media how Hackman's health had started declining recently, stating how over the last couple of months, Hackman was really slipping there. In recent times, Hackman was essentially kind of homebound, Daniel Lenahan said, with Barbara Lenahan adding that about a year ago, Hackman quit riding his bike through the neighborhood. Betsy tried to keep him kind of active and engaged, Aaron said, while adding that Hackman would play puzzles and do Zoom yoga sessions to stay active. Betsy was still trying to keep him as active and engaged and healthy as possible, Aaron said. As for Arakawa, Barbara told media that Betsy was in perfect health and was so fit. Aaron said Betsy was always careful around Hackman, sharing that she was very protective of him in terms of COVID, so she'd always wear a mask when we'd see her out. Aaron went on to say that They were one of the tightest couples I've seen, adding, they seemed like real-life partners, really close to each other. And they were both incredibly kind. And they were reserved, but they were real and a lot of fun. Gene Hackman's friend, Doug Lanham, told media that Arakawa always monitored Hackman's diet and made sure he order either the halibut or rice paper salmon rather than a big steak when they dined at Hackman's bistro that he owned for years. They were one of the tightest couples I've seen, Lanham said. They seemed like real-life partners, really close to each other, and they were both incredibly kind. And they were reserved, but they were real, and a lot of fun. While the Lenahans claimed Hackman's health was declining, one of his daughters painted a different picture. Leslie Ann Hackman told the outlet that there was no indication that there was any problem with her father's health before his death. Despite his age, he was in very good physical condition, she said. However, Leslie Ann also admitted that she hadn't spoken to her father in months. A similar story was found with Betsy Arakawa and her 91-year-old mother, Yoshi Feaster, who suffers from dementia and lives in Hawaii. According to Feaster's housekeeper, Arakawa last called her mother in October. Betsy hadn't called her mother in months. Keiko, the housekeeper, told the Daily Mail. She usually called every 1 or 2 months. Last time she called was in October. We were thinking, what happened? The death scene. There were confusing clues came from the dog. A surprising twist in the investigation involved one of the couple's dogs. Police initially reported the death of Bear, a German Shepherd. However, they later clarified it was Zinna, a 12-year-old mixed-breed Kelpie, discovered near Betsy Arakawa's body. Zinna likely died from lack of food or water, while Bear and Nikita, an Akita Shepherd mix, survived, roaming freely. This correction has fueled questions about the timeline of the Santa Fe tragedy. FBI also found Gene Hackman's pacemaker, a key to the timeline. Investigators found that the device recorded its last activity on February 17, 2025, potentially pinpointing his time of death. Found in the foyer, Hackman's location, separate from Arakawa in the bathroom, adds complexity to the case. Could this clue unlock the truth behind the Gene Hackman death? Came to Betsy Arakawa death scene. The discovery of Betsy in the bathroom with pills scattered on the countertop immediately sparked speculation. While some theorized an overdose, forensic expert James Gill has dismissed a joint suicide scenario. Hackman's mobility, he could move independently, suggests he didn't die helplessly after Arakawa. The pills remain under analysis, keeping the Betsy Arakawa death investigation open. Top theories surrounding the tragedy. There are several theories have emerged about the couple's deaths. Theory number 1, a sudden death followed by an accident. Forensic engineer Mike Sutton speculates that Arakawa's sudden death may have left Hackman unable to care for himself, leading to his own demise. As Arakawa was reportedly Hackman's primary caregiver, Sutton suggests she may have suffered a medical crisis, perhaps an overdose or an untreated condition, that resulted in her passing. The presence of prescription pills near her body raises further questions. Sutton also highlights the possibility that Hackman, who may have relied on Arakawa for his medication, collapsed while trying to get help. His inability to reach a phone or call for assistance could have sealed his fate. Forensic analysis will be essential in determining whether they died around the same time or days apart, Sutton explains, adding that toxicology and autopsy results will be crucial in piecing together the timeline of their deaths. Theory number 2, a death followed by a distressed suicide. Legal analyst Paul Morrow proposes a different theory, that Arakawa took her own life in despair after discovering Hackman's body. Morrow suggests that the couple's $3 million home likely had security features, such as motion sensors and doorbell cameras, which may have captured crucial footage. Digital devices, including their phones and computers, could provide insights into their final days. He believes that Hackman, who required a cane to walk, may have fallen and suffered a fatal injury. If Arakawa found him too late, her grief might have driven her to overdose. While the pills found at the scene were not typical suicide drugs, Mauro notes that combining them with alcohol could be lethal. If this were my investigation, I'd be doing all the traditional things, checking tire marks and footprints, speaking to neighbors, maintenance workers, and relatives, Mauro states. Mauro, a former NYPD officer with 26 years of service, currently works as an attorney and hosts the Fox Nation's special Blood in America, the Tren de Aragua invasion. His thoughts align with those of renowned forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Baden, who also suspects that Arakawa may have died after discovering Hackman's body. Theory number 3, 2 separate medical emergencies. Dr. Michael Baden proposes a theory involving 2 independent medical crises. He notes that neither Hackman, Arakawa, nor their deceased dog showed signs of external trauma, suggesting their deaths were due to natural causes. Baden believes Hackman may have suffered a fatal heart attack, possibly exacerbated by a malfunctioning pacemaker. If Arakawa found him unresponsive, she may have rushed to the bathroom to retrieve his medication, but collapsed due to an underlying health issue, such as a brain bleed or heart failure. Adding to the tragedy, their dog, locked in a kennel, likely perished due to neglect in the days that followed. The couple's other 2 dogs, who were not confined, managed to survive. Although tragic, the evidence does not suggest foul play. Instead, it appears to be a devastating chain of events, Baden concludes. The great partner of Jean. And now we remembered classical pianist Betsy Arakawa, the one who stood by her husband's side through many important moments in life, even until the very last moment. The two reportedly began dating in the mid-'80s, and by 1990, they were sharing a home in Santa Fe, New Mexico. That same year, he underwent angioplasty due to congestive heart failure, something that convinced him in part to retire from making films. Hackman then pivoted to writing, publishing his first book, Wake of the Perdido Star, in 1999. He went on to work on at least 4 others, including Payback at Morning Peak, a Western set in and inspired by his life in Santa Fe. In 2014, Hackman told the Writer's Bone podcast that Arakawa, whom he married in 1991, helped him to hone his writing. If in fact I have a style, it came from repeated edits, friends' suggestions, and my wife's unwavering specific read-throughs, he said. The actor met his future bride at a gym in California, where Arakawa worked part-time while pursuing a career in classical music. Arakawa was reportedly born in Hawaii in the early 60s. Though Hackman and Arakawa didn't have children together, she was a stepmom to the Heartbreaker star's 3 kids from his previous marriage to his first wife, Faye Maltese, son Christopher Allen, and daughters Leslie Ann and Elizabeth Jean. While speaking in 2000 interview, the actor said of his children, "It's tough being the son or daughter of a celebrity. I couldn't always be home with them when they were growing up, and then, living in California, they've had my success always hanging over their heads." In addition to having worked at a fitness center, Arakawa was a skilled musician who was a classically trained pianist. Hackman and Arakawa's Santa Fe home was featured in Architectural Digest in April 1990. Though the once-abandoned 1950s building had rough beginnings, the couple worked to make their space light and soaring, with an open floor plan and a blend of the Pueblo and colonial New Mexico and Spanish Baroque styles. Involved with every aspect of the house, Hackman determined the floor plan, mixed paint colors, and specified details, but not without the help of his spouse. When Hackman was away filming, Arakawa took charge, consulting with her partner over the phone and sending him photos. The couple procured their furniture locally and from boutiques around the world, including in New York, California, and Germany. With no known social media and no interviews about herself or her love life, Arakawa appeared to be a private individual, something that Hackman told the Irish Independent was largely by design. "Where we live in Santa Fe, you can lead your own life and not be bothered by the latest gossip, he said. According to Hackman's bio with Simon & Schuster, he and Arakawa shared their home with 2 German shepherds. They previously had 3. In 1999, the couple adopted a 3rd. While Hackman was filming The Replacements in Baltimore, 2 strays wandered onto the set. The actor had them brought to a local shelter, which named the dogs Gene and Keanu. After Hackman and his co-star Keanu Reeves, the couple adopted the one named Gene. In 2020, Hackman gave fans a glimpse into his private life with Arakawa in an interview. As he told the outlet, the 2 regularly watched DVDs that Arakawa rented. "We like simple stories that some of the little low-budget films manage to produce," he said. He also shared their weekend ritual. Friday night is set aside for a Comedy Channel marathon, with particular attention paid to Eddie Izzard, the outlet reported. "The speed of thought is amazing," Hackman said. Neighbor Aaron Lenahan told media that Arakawa would keep Hackman active and engaged by doing puzzles and taking yoga classes via Zoom. "She was still trying to keep him as active and engaged and healthy as possible," he said. Aaron also described Hackman and Arakawa as one of the tightest couples I've seen. "They seem like real-life partners, really close to each other, and they were both incredibly kind. And they were reserved, but they were real, and a lot of fun," he said. Aaron's mother, Barbara Lenahan, added, "Gene was as proud of Betsy as she was of him. She had been a concert pianist. Over at their house, she had a special building, a studio that half of it was her grand pianos, and another half was Gene's art studio." Remembering Gene Hackman. While waiting for the authorities to release their final statement on the cause of death of the Hollywood legend and his wife, let us take a moment to reflect and honor the man who made tremendous contributions to the arts. Best known for playing cantankerous, often volatile characters who exude a virile and dangerous energy, Gene Hackman was one of a generation of young actors who shook up Hollywood in the 1970s with his gritty, raw approach to performing. Born Eugene Alder Hackman on January 30, 1930, Hackman came to acting late. He was 30 after he had been discharged from the U.S. Marine Corps. He had signed up aged 16, trained as a radio operator, and did tours as a disc jockey in the Pacific, that he began to take acting classes at the Pasadena Playhouse in Southern California. There, he met another actor hopeful, with less than movie star looks, Dustin Hoffman. Both were voted least likely to succeed by their classmates. Undeterred, they moved out to New York to pursue stage work, for a time rooming together with a certified public accountant named Peter Falk. Hackman drove a moving van to pay the bills. Hackman got his first stage role in 1958 in an off-Broadway production of Chaparral. TV work followed, and finally films. His big screen breakthrough came playing Clyde Barrow's older brother, Buck, in Arthur Penn's Bonnie and Clyde in 1967, which secured him his first Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He was nominated again for Gilbert Cates's I Never Sang for My Father, playing a son whose aging dad becomes dependent on him. But it was William Friedkin's The French Connection that made Hackman a star. The cop thriller about a narc trying to track down an elusive drug smuggler was revolutionary for its time. Friedkin, who started in documentaries, abandoned film sets to shoot in the streets of New York, creating a new sort of gritty realism. In the film's iconic chase scene, for example, Popeye Doyle races underneath an elevated train through the crowded city streets. A scene was shot with no permits, with the stunt driver, Bill Hickman, racing across Brooklyn at 90 miles an hour. Hackman, with a face that showed highway miles and a gruff manner to match, was a perfect fit for Friedkin's approach. Years after the film's release, Hackman would recall that, "People on the street still call me Popeye. I wish I could have another hit and a new nickname." In the 1970s, Hackman made film after film, including big-budget disaster movie The Poseidon Adventure in 1972, Francis Ford Coppola's paranoid thriller The Conversation in 1974, a French Connection sequel in 1975, and Richard Attenborough's World War II epic A Bridge Too Far in 1977. Most performances played on the hard-nosed, no-nonsense personality perfected in French Connection, but Hackman also showed signs of comic genius as the blind hermit in Mel Brooks' 1974 classic Young Frankenstein, or as the smarmy nemesis Lex Luthor in Superman, 1978, the first and still one of the best superhero movies. In later years, he added more serious turns to his repertoire as high school basketball coach Norman Dale in Hoosiers, 1986, the sleazy politician in political thriller No Way Out, 1987, or the cynical, mobbed-up tax lawyer in The Firm, 1993. He'd offer touches of humor that deflated his on-screen persona, playing a sleazy movie producer in Get Shorty, 1995, a right-wing senator in The Birdcage, 1996, or the stripped-suited patriarch of a dysfunctional family of geniuses in Wes Anderson's delightful The Royal Tenenbaums, 2001. His turn as a racist FBI agent in Alan Parker's anti-segregation drama Mississippi Burning, 1988, earned him his second Best Actor Oscar nomination. Throughout the 1990s, it was hard to find a single political thriller that didn't rely on Hackman's gravitas and imposing presence, from Crimson Tide, 1995, and Extreme Measures, 1996, to The Chamber, 1996, Absolute Power, 1997, or Enemy of the State, 1998. But Hackman did not wear fame lightly and never seemed comfortable in his role as leading man and Hollywood star. He repeatedly stepped away from the limelight, taking a sabbatical at the end of the 70s, turning down a chance to play Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs, 1991, and often agonizing about his career choices. Clint Eastwood had to convince Hackman to take on a role as the violent, if bemused, Sheriff Little Bill Daggett in his revisionist Western Unforgiven, 1992. Hackman recalled telling Eastwood he didn't want to do a violent picture. "I'm tired of it. I've been involved with a lot of them," the director in a 2009 interview recalled Hackman telling him. "I said, I know exactly where you are coming from. Read it again because I think we can make a really great statement against violence and killing if we do this right." The role won Hackman his second Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. In 2003, after being honored with the Cecil B. DeMille Award at the Golden Globes and giving a comic turn in Welcome to Mooseport, 2004, as a former U.S. president who runs for mayor in a small town in Maine, Hackman retired from acting to write novels. His books included historical fictions Wake of the Perdido Star, 1999, Justice for None, 2004, and Escape from Andersonville, 2008, the Western revenge thriller Payback at Morning Peak, 2011, and the police thriller Pursuit, 2013. While Hackman's cause of death is still unknown, the Conversation star did talk about various health issues over the years, including one that caused him to retire from acting. Hackman had an angioplasty in 1990. In a prolific year in which he appeared in the 1990 movies Loose Cannons, Postcards from the Edge, and Narrow Margin, Hackman also had a procedure to avoid a heart attack. Hackman, who was 60 at the time, underwent an angioplasty in which a balloon catheter was inserted to unblock an artery to his heart. Hackman had been experiencing chest pains that then went down one of his arms while on vacation in Oregon. Doctors said he was within hours of experiencing a heart attack. Hackman also spoke about the angioplasty in a 2004 interview on CNN. The host asked him if he was scared about undergoing the procedure. "No, not really. I didn't really know the extent of it at the time. I guess that's why," Hackman said. "It happened very quickly. I was in the same day." Hackman was then asked if he had any fears about his health. "I try to take care of myself," he said. "I don't have a lot of fears. I have the normal fear of passing away. You know, I guess we all think about that, especially when you get to be a certain age. I want to make sure that my wife and my family are taken care of. Other than that, I don't have a lot of fears. Hackman retired from acting in 2004 due to heart issues. The legendary actor's final movie was the comedy Welcome to Mooseport with Ray Romano in 2004. In a 2008 interview, he confirmed his retirement. "I haven't held a press conference to announce retirement, but yes, I'm not going to act any longer. I've been told not to say that over the last few years, in case some real wonderful part comes up, but I really don't want to do it any longer." Hackman then shared in a 2009 interview with Empire that a big reason he retired from acting was his health. "The doctor advised me that my heart wasn't in the kind of shape that I should be putting it under any stress," Hackman said. He told the outlet that he enjoyed writing, fishing, painting, and watching low-budget films with his wife in his retirement in New Mexico. He wrote 3 historical fiction novels with archaeologist Daniel Lenihan, as well as westerns and police thrillers on his own. "It's a different kind of stress," he said about writing. "It's one you can kind of manage because you're sitting there by yourself, as opposed to having 90 people sitting around waiting for you to entertain them." He was hit by a car riding a bike in 2012. In addition to his heart issues, Hackman suffered injuries when he was hit by a car while riding his bike in Islamorada, Florida in 2012. Hackman, who was 81 at the time, was not wearing a helmet when a pickup truck struck the rear tire of his bike. He was airlifted to Ryder Trauma Center in Miami, according to the Highway Patrol. Hackman's spokeswoman told media he was just bumped by the truck, and the only reason he was airlifted was because he was on an island. She said he only ended up with a couple minor bumps and bruises and was released from the hospital after routine tests. Death comes when we least expect it. As believers, we can rejoice in the wonderful truth that, through Christ, we have become God's own children, adopted through grace. We bear the image of God's family and are joint heirs with Jesus Christ of everything God possesses. We enjoy God's love, care, protection, power, and other resources in abundance for all eternity. But there is another side to our being children, and in Scripture, believers are also referred to as children in the sense that we are incomplete, weak, dependent, undeveloped, unskilled, vulnerable, and immature. Matthew 18 focuses on those immature, unperfected, childlike qualities that believers demonstrate as they mutually develop into conformity to the fullness of the stature of Jesus Christ. Jesus teaches on the specific theme of the childlikeness of the believer, speaking directly to the reality that we are spiritual children with all the weaknesses that childhood implies. It is also essential to see that the chapter teaches the church, as a group of spiritually unperfected children, how to get along with each other. In the event that investigative authorities announce that Jean's death is not related to any frightening theories, but is simply a natural passing, then we, despite our deep regret and sorrow over the loss of a legend, should learn to accept it. It's true that death is a despicable consequence of the fall, and it's right to grieve and weep over the devastation it causes on this side of eternity. Nevertheless, death does not and cannot operate outside the bounds of divine sovereignty. 19th century minister Alexander MacLaren suggests, "Death is Christ's minister, mighty and beauteous, though his face be dark, and he too stands amidst the ranks of the ministering spirits sent forth to minister to them that shall be heirs of salvation." The profound suggestion that death is a ministering spirit belonging to Christ can grant courage and comfort to those who believe. Because Christ defeated death, he owns it and commands it to serve his greater purposes of redemption. The summons Christ bids is not hasty, accidental, unintentional, brash, miscalculated, or even unkind. It cannot be, for it would be inconsistent with his character if it were. Yet, from our perspective on the ground, death often looks like all of these things. Though this paradox makes no sense to us, God intends for us to live in the tension of its upside-down truth. We take solace, not only in trusting God's higher ways, but in remembering that Jesus is not asking us to walk through something he has not endured himself. In John 14:3-4, Jesus says, "When everything is ready, I will come and get you, so that you will always be with me where I am. And you know the way to where I am going." When we fear death, our souls long to be comforted from someone who has passed through the terrifying pilgrimage and ultimately lived to tell about it. Jesus, the first fruits of resurrected life, is the one and only man who can boast such a feat. He waves his pierced hands across the great divide and beckons us upward to glory. To be with him where he is, we must go the way he went, which is states in 1 Corinthians 15:54. Then, when our dying bodies have been transformed into bodies that will never die, this scripture will be fulfilled. Death is swallowed up in victory. Our Christ has defeated the ultimate enemy of life. He has vanquished the power of death. He calls us to die, a call to obedience in the final transition of life. Because of Christ, death is not final. It is a passage from one world to the next. Not only must the angel of death obey Christ in the matter, but we must also submit in complete obedience, no longer out of punishment, but out of invitation. "Come, child, I desire you to be where I am." Just as it was for Christ, the corridor of death is a prerequisite for our glorification, where both body and soul await their ultimate redemption. Sometimes, the kindest mercy God can grant is the call that brings us home. Beyond all secondary causes, deeper than disease or accident, lies the loving will of Him who is the Lord of life and of death. By no means should we make light of the evil that death unleashes. We should hate it with every fiber of our being because our bodies were not originally designed to contend with it. Death was something foreign in the Garden of Eden, yet because of one man's disobedience, we all fall under its curse and groan for it to be eradicated forevermore. Until that day, we watch the minister of death go where he's divinely commissioned, leaving us often confused by the lofty logic of the orders. However, because Christ is risen, we can have confidence that he makes no home in the grave. And if no home in the grave for him, then none for us as well. Jesus carries out a double work for his sheep. Here on earth, he is with us. On earth, our communion with him is real, though incomplete. In heaven, it gains its glorious perfection. On earth, Christ serves as our shepherd, leading through the valley of death. In heaven, he welcomes us into the Master's joy, with all the eagerness and exuberance that divine hospitality could offer. In Christ, we can look at death and see something beyond a harrowing reaper. We see a servant carrying out the plans necessary to bring God's people to a superior plane of glory. Viewing death through the lens of redemption may not help us to make sense of the tragic means, but it does give us greater confidence in trusting God for the ends. For if the Holy One of Israel posts an invitation home, we can rest assured that somehow it's sealed with the goodness of Christ's kiss. When everything is ready, he will come and get us. For what happened, rest in peace, our legend.